Blog Talk Radio.
Here at ACO Radio, American Communications Online, or any affiliated stations or websites are not responsible for what guest hosts or call-ins may say. All programming is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only.
Hello, world. This is TJ Morris, and you're listening to ET Radio, or TJ Morris ET Radio, sponsored by American Communications Online, and I will be your host tonight, Theresa J. Morris, with Jan Aldrich, and we are going to discuss about 102 years of our UFO association together, and we're going to discuss all our groups we've been in, and I happen to be a member of Mutual UFO Network. And we're doing some public relations work tonight. I'm getting back on board with the captain who we put up his bio tonight, but he won't be with us because I didn't ask him to be with us tonight because we're doing PR work for him. But he was across he actually talked to me in Kentucky, and I came on board to do a little PR work with our commercial for this particular show. And so this show and MUFON has a long history, and I've got a MUFON advertisement somewhere over here. But I tell you what, it's up to you. It's a nonprofit, whether you want to join or not. We have all kind of new ways to do that, and you can look at it at MUFON.com. But I'm going to call right now and get Jan Harzan on, and hope you can hear me. I don't have anybody helping me tonight. Jan's going to come on the last hour. Let's see. 546-8135. Oh, it looks like Janet made it. Okay, why is that not working? Okay, hold on. May have to call you other. Let me try that again. Okay. Let me get Jan. Hello, is this? Yes, hi. Yes, this is Theresa J. Morris, and we're live on the air looking for Jan Harzan. No, we're looking for Jan Aldrich. Sorry about that. Hello? Did I get the wrong number? Janet, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got an echo.
Okay. Janet, can you introduce yourself while I'm going to put me on hold so no echo. That way, if you'll introduce yourself, you can help me co-host tonight with Jan Aldrich. Okay. And I'm going to call him while you're introducing yourself. Go ahead. Well, this is interesting. I talked to several people in the UFO secret space tonight that I didn't know I was going to do because my phone crossed over into our group call, and I'm not sure what's going on these days because I zinc everything, so I apologize to everybody. But I'm going to check this number right here with Jan, 860-546 9135. Oh, hi, Jan. Let me call you back. I was verifying the phone number, okay? Okay, I'll call you right back. Okay. Now, let's see. Okay. Goodness sakes. This has been a day, folks. Trying to be human. All right. Let's see if we can be human here. Janet will have to call back in because she got cut off. I'm not sure. We're having all these crossovers. I talked to, let's see, dial. Is that happening? Well, let me try it again. I'm sorry, folks. I'm doing something that's shouldn't be that hard. I guess I have to hang. I hope he knows I'm hanging this one up. Now let's try to call again. Dialing. Let's see if it'll dial. Well, one more time. Everybody, please be patient. Janet, I apologize. It knocked you off. And what I'm doing is I'm calling the number that I've been given, if it will hit dial. He may have to call in. I don't know why it's not working. This is embarrassing. It says it's dialing. Wow, it's hard working alone without a co-host to help. I'm trying to do several things here at one time, and I don't know why it won't dial. Okay, because we're on the show, apparently, and I had called in and got a whole bunch of people. Earl Gray with Mutual UFO Network out in California, he just had a knee operation, and so he's recuperating. So, I would have had him on tonight helping. But I'm punching the button. Let me see, dialing. Maybe I'll have to put it in again. I hate this, but I've got to get connected to Jan, and I don't know why it kicked Janet off because she was on here. May have to refresh my screen. There it goes.
Hello?
Oh, good, finally. Wow, I was having technical difficulties. So Janet Lessin, if you can hear us, call back in. Janet was here, and it kicked her off, and I couldn't get you, so I had to call you back. I apologize to everybody that's listening. So this is Jan Aldrich. Jan, I haven't had a chance to introduce you at all, so let's get started here. There'll be a little delay on the beginning. If you want to introduce yourself, I know you've got 50 years between the U.S. Army and the U.S. Post Office in service, and we're going to talk a little bit about your history and all these groups, NICAP and CUFOs and MUFON and UAP Associates, which I've got now, and all of them together, including with Janet Lessin, who I knocked off, so she may be coming back on here in a few minutes with the ACO. So tell people a little about who you are and why you would be interested in helping us do public relations work for the UFO associations of all the groups, if you don't mind.
Well, here's I've been interested in UFOs since I was about 15, so that's almost 60 years now. So that's a long time. And right after I got interested, I started collecting stuff too. So I spent 25 years in the Army as a supply, then meteorology, intelligence and security, and personnel. I was enlisted master sergeant that was a assistant adjutant, which is like rare as hen's teeth. They don't usually appoint adjutants that are enlisted. And then finished off as about my last 10 months or so as safety in an organization commanded the Southern European Task Force in in Italy, commanded by a 2-star general, so I was the safety officer for that outfit. After that, I came back to the United States. I went to work for the post office after a few years and worked for them for 25 years. And I'm now retired from that, so now I'm doing UFOs full time. And believe me, it is a full-time job as far as what we're doing now. I do have a website. Kind of been neglected for the last year or so, but I hope to put up something there that will tie everything that's on the site together in some kind of a more or less historical outline. I have a degree in history, so I'm interested in the UFO history. And even if you don't have, UFOs don't have to exist to study the history of them, because people like Donald Keogh and Walt Andrews, they exist, and they were interested in UFOs. So it's possible to study history of something that many people think that doesn't exist, but there is a history of the people that have been interested in it. So that's one of my interests, is the history. I'm also interested in looking for patterns and other things regarding UFOs, and preservation is one of my top thing. And so for the last several years, I've been scanning what I've collected over the last 50 or so years. And it's not going too well. It's going slow. So I may run out of lifespan before I get it all scanned. However, another project we're working on is scanning the CUFOS files, the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago. And the CUFOS, they have a number of other UFO organizations that don't exist anymore. They have their files. So NICAP, National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena, which was in Washington, D.C. from 1957 till 1980. Predecessor organizations were Civilian Saucer Intelligence in New York, which existed from 52 to 1960 about. One of the first organizations, and which was noted by Life magazine, so they got a lot of publicity, and because of that, they got a lot of sightings. Civilian Saucer Investigations in Los Angeles. And there's a number of other UFO organizations and individuals that donated their files to NICAP, which then became part of CUFOS, and people have donated files to CUFOS. So there's a huge amount of files at CUFOS. There's of just sighting files. There's 67 plus. Well, let's see. It's more like 75. 75 filing cabinets of UFO sightings from before 1947 all the way up until the 90s or so. and that's what we're trying to get scanned, put it on computers so it can be preserved, but also so it's like a movable filing cabinet, or as I like to call it, a digital filing cabinet. You can put all that on a thumb drive or a external drive and walk around with it in your pocket. So that's what I've been doing for the last few years, is trying to get this stuff scanned. We've scanned from pre-47 up to 1965, and from August 67 to 1970. So you can see 66, a good part of 67 needs to be done, plus a lot of things after 1970. Now, we've also scanned material in the other eras that haven't, but we haven't finished scanning. It's just, like sometimes you could come across files, and a lot of my files are just piles. So when I start scanning, I may scan 73, the item from 73, and then an item from 52, and an item from 47. So it just becomes like that. So this is kind of a priority. We want to get this done. So we have a huge collection of UFO material that will be available to people in not only in the United States but all over the world. When you have this much material, then you can start doing things with it that might be hard to do with just small studies. When you have this huge collection of things, probably close to 100,000 cases. So, one other thing I want to do is just before lights out, I want to tie everything together on my website with a sort of a historical outline. So I'd say that's what I do.
And what will happen to your website called project1947.com, isn't it?
I've already made arrangements for somebody to carry that on after I'm gone.
Okay, that's good. Now, as far as being a historian at ACE, we have various people that volunteer for many groups. And a lot of social media now, of course, we are all slave to the Internet now, cyberspace junkies or people living inside the matrix and sharing our parts on, various places like mainly Facebook and YouTube are the big ones right now. Of course, a lot of us that are entrepreneurs use LinkedIn, and some of the younger kids do TikTok, but Instagram, places like that. But, Janet came back again, so I'll have to let her introduce. But we'll get into a conversation of what all we're doing, Jan, and talk about Dave McDonald coming back on. I'm sorry that we got off to a rough start. Janet Lessin. Okay, Jan's here, so I want you to introduce yourself to everybody and let everybody know you're here from Hawaii, and you've been helping us for 8 years do archived radio shows. And Jan Aldrich is here sharing his many, many years. So between all of us, I know we've got a minimum of 100 years, my 50, his 60. And you'll soon be 18, won't you, Janet, 18 years old?
No, I'm 66. Yeah. No, I'm sorry I got booted, and I don't know. Then I got 3 calls in a row, so it was interesting.
Okay.
I booted, then my phone lit up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm back. So I'm Janet Lessin. I've been on a couple hundred shows with TJ, so we know each other very well, and we're just UFO investigators, reporters, experiencers, all the above. So what's today's show about, TJ? You were talking about Jan Aldrich stepped down as MUFON director, and what's his name? David McDonald has come into his replacement. Wasn't David McDonald there before?
He was the emeritus role. Yeah, we can talk about all of that. Jan Aldrich is still a director with us with UFO Association and Ace Folklife Historical Association. It was Jan Harzan that stepped down, and immediately interim is Dave McDonald. Now, he lived in Kentucky when I did, as far as I know. He still does, and we had the MUFON office right around the Cincinnati, Ohio location, and he and I talked, and we were revitalizing the investigator handbook at the time, and that's when Kathy Martin came in and helped with experiencers. So Jan Aldrich is here with us now. So Jan Harzan, this is all happening in 2020, folks. Everything's been turned upside down. But Dave is the interim, I guess. But he was a director. He still is a director. And everybody can go to MUFON.com and look up all the directors. There's 5 or 6 of them. We probably know all of them. But Jan, you want to talk about that? I think you said Jan Aldrich stepped down, didn't you? Or was it my ears? Did you hear that, Jan?
I don't know. Too many Jans.
There were too many Jans.
That's right.
Too many Jans.
Yeah.
So Jan Harzan stepped down because of some kind of something going on which happened to other people in ufology. And so we don't know how it's going to pan out for him. Hopefully he's innocent. But this happened. We had, in each generation, we've had some kind of accusation of inappropriate sexuality coming from people in the MUFON or in the ufology field. So what do you think that's about? Is that true, or it's just a witch hunt for people in ufology? Do you have any ideas? Either of you?
Jan said he believes people are innocent until proven guilty. So let's let Jan speak for himself, because he does know we were going to follow off with that lead. Harzan out, McDonald in again. And I haven't talked to Dave McDonald, honestly, to get his statement yet, but I'll do my best. His phones are ringing, I'm sure, like when he stepped in before. When we started back years ago, 2007, 8, that era. But Jan, why don't you speak for yourself?
Let me just say one thing before we go to Jan Aldrich. I was at the IUFO Congress when, what was that guy's name that he was the UFO abductee experiencer? He wrote a couple books, and his wife wrote a book. He was real popular. Come on, name that tune.
Which one?
Anyway.
Corey Good?
It was an R. No, those
Emery Smith?
Didn't get accused. No, they didn't get accused. Don't accuse him. No. Great. Let me think of his name. Start with he went to jail for a while.
Oh, you're talking about real MUFON people. Yeah, his wife is still a friend.
People. No,
it's the one that had the little alien movie out at his window. Jan will know.
Yes,
Jan Aldrich.
Yes. So
Jan, help us out here.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Okay, anyway, there was some guy there. I'll find it.
All right, well, his wife's in our social media.
I'll figure out who it was.
Well, yeah, Jan, look at our Facebook groups, Jan. She's one of our friends in our groups. We have so many of them, Jan Aldrich. But, folks, this is Jan Aldrich. We've had Jan Harzan on here, but he's not on here right now. So I did put a call into Jan, but I don't know if he's getting his calls or if someone else has his phone. But he is on a friend of mine in my phone. So, Jan, have you talked to Jan? I know he sends you stuff in the mail and everything. Have you talked to Jan today, Jan Harzan?
No, I have not talked to him. I haven't talked to him since last year, I don't think. We're trying to do something with AJ Gravard, and so we were, having a three-way conversation. So I haven't really talked to him since then. The main place that I met him and talked to him was at the Orlando conference, which is now quite a few years back. And we talked about how UFOs can be studied. There was a lot of that going on at the conference right there. I haven't had any recent contact with him.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about that. Let me get Suzanne on here. Suzanne, you showed up early, but I want you to introduce yourself as not a Jan. But we have Jan Aldrich, Janet Lessin, Janet Thurmond Morris, and a Suzanne Wyman tonight. Okay, Suzanne, go ahead and say hi to Janet and Jan Aldrich, if you don't mind.
Hi, Jan. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
And hi, Janet. So very nice to be included, and thank you for bringing me in. I'm sorry I'm late today.
Oh, no, that's great. You perfect timing. Now, we're just getting started, actually. We had a late start, and I hope that's okay with everybody. It was a little hard on the front, but I'll go ahead and list your name on the top here with us so everybody gets credit for today. It's like school. Everybody likes to see their name when they're putting in their archives. So we're just getting started, Suzanne, with the history of how all these UFO groups, and we have quite a few of them, and members in a lot of our social media groups in LinkedIn and Facebook, and I've got different directors that will be coming on our shows, and Janet and I have both interviewed a lot of MUFON people over the past few years on our radio shows. But we were just asking Jan his opinion. Now, Jan Harzan, we're going to let him talk for a minute, Suzanne, and then we'll try to include you. But Janet asked an important question because we've had Jan Harzan step down, and we've had our old Dave McDonald, we call him Captain, come back in again. I'm going to read his bio here if everybody will just stand by for one moment. Dave McDonald is the new director of MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, folks, so we call it MUFON for short. And Dave is David, but we call him Dave McDonald, and most of his friends call him Captain or Cap. David started his entrepreneurial career at about the age of 8, shining shoes in bars and streets of his hometown. At about 10 or 11, he was he read Project Blue Book and many other early flying saucer books. So his adult career started at a laboratory working on the development team that produced such products as Behold Furniture Polish, Windex, and Indust. However, being an entrepreneur by nature, he went on to establish a number of businesses, among which was the McDonald Defense Company, which became the largest independent security firm in the region. Additionally, he owned a manufacturing firm and produced an array of wireless microphones, listening devices, and other clandestine, depending on how you say it, gizmos, secret stuff. So he owned a bookstore and a photo studio, specializing in model portfolios in underwater photography. So he served 8 years as a county peace officer in Kentucky, and in 1991, Dave founded Flamingo Air and has developed into a full-time air carrier operation. Now, he and his wife, Sharon, who's helped run MUFON for years, Sharon McGee, has further developed Flamingo Air Academy, which is now global in scope and Cincinnati's premier flight and airline dispatch school. Now, Dave resides with his wife, Sharon, at their home in northern Kentucky. And then I've got to join UFO Association, ACO Club, sharing among friends who attend our various events. We have ACO and ACE Folklife serving with our ACO UFO ET Club, and we all do shows open source public relations work, and we volunteer to help. And Dave knows that from years and years ago. And so we're just back doing how we got started a long time ago in open source. And it really is a 501c, a bona fide one, folks, MUFON is. And we're here to serve. And so if you want to join, please go over there. You can I do it for $7.89 a month. And there's 5 and 9 and 10. And then you can join the PR and give money for $20. So we just help. That's what we're doing, is helping. Now, we can talk about Jan Harzan, which you ladies may have missed, but Jan's got over 60 years in the UFO business and has helped way back when we had NICAP that I can remember, where there was Don Berliner there in D.C. and Jan Maccabee. Jan Maccabee's another Jan, her husband, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, and he's been on here and helped Janet and I start the ACO Alien Contact Organization, and Suzanne's come in to help with Ace Folklife tomorrow night. But Jan Aldrich, now, with all these groups, do you remember you came on the scene out of Washington, D.C., and I know that Dr. Bruce Maccabee was training at the CIA facility and helping people learn about UFOs. But your role, you were a child, and I'd like you to tell your story to Janet and Suzanne and all those listening, because you were just a kid at NICAP, weren't you, 15 or 16?
Well, yeah, I went to NICAP when I was let's see. 1960. I met Richard Hall in NICAP, so that was
the big one. What does that stand for? National something?
National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. So
aerial phenomena.
Yeah, that's about 3 years after they were formed, and Richard Hall was assistant director then, and the very popular UFO author, Major Donald E. Keogh, was the director. And so during the summer, our family went on a tour of, well, my father was very interested in history, so we went to some of the Revolutionary War monuments, and we ended up in Washington, D.C., looking at some of those, and I asked him if I could go to NICAP, so he let me spend the afternoon there. So I guess I probably bugged Dick Hall all afternoon with talking to him, so he couldn't get any work done. But
so he got to know you.
Yeah,
pretty
he did.
Good.
So I would try to do things like, send in newspaper clippings and go into old newspapers and copy things out. And at that time, we were copying things out by hand and then typing them up. So I did that kind of stuff. And,
that's back when newspapers were really big, folks. Tell them
how
old
that was when all the UFO stuff was in the newspapers, and I investigated some cases around where I lived. None of them were very big, although I went on one with a police officer from Meriden, Connecticut, and so after he got off work, we would go around and do some investigations, and since now this is remember, UFOs are pretty at this time there's like a lull in activity, and they're pretty much a butt of everybody's joke, so it wasn't the greatest time to be in ufology. And one of the officers at the Meriden Police Department had a UFO sighting, and it's typical Hynek type thing. He stopped at a stoplight, and he sees in the distance what looks like biplanes. 4 of them, and they're coming towards him, but at a great distance. As they get closer, he sees they're not biplanes, they're triangles. And they're very low, and as he watches, they turn and zoom away. And so he went in and made a police report. and of course, all the other officers gave him grief and had a good time at his expense. But the fellow that I was with, Terry Murphy, he got a copy. So I sent that into Nightcap, and that was like being a hero at the time because, like I say, it was a slow time for UFOs. So.
Well, I imagine Janet and Suzanne will have a lot of questions for you folks. This is a historical event today. It's July 17th, 2020, and we're making a oral story archive, and we've been very fortunate with Jan Aldrich to have a lot of the history of all our groups, since I've been alive, and we do cover some prior Majestic 12 and Stanton Friedman, and a lot of other people we can mention names that we've done in the past. But Jan Aldrich has shared a lot of his history, and we can have you go back and look at the archives. But, Jan, what would you like to talk about? Because Jan had asked an important question to get the ball rolling on our narrative. We're the boomers, folks. We're the ones that were alive during a lot of these things and lived through the time. So we pretty much can tell you what we encountered and then what we actually can remember and what we stored in archives or read in newspapers or we're actually experiencing. But the most important thing is to get Jan here. And let's talk now, the MUFON coming, if you go to MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, you'll see where they have money they're taking in for the CUFOs and helping them as well, Jan. And you've been going over there. And at one time, why don't you share with Janet about the 2 groups or the 3 groups, and I know she'll like hearing the Robert Bigelow story, and I've got a little part of that myself on this with him and Stan. But where should we start with I'm always curious how Bigelow came in because people know when Captain McDonald was in last time, he was having to help with the money coming in for the 3 groups because you were part of that, weren't you?
When they had it was MUFON, the Fund for UFO Research in Washington D.C. and of course CUFOS. They formed like an overall organization called the Coalition for UFO Research. So and the thing is, all these groups had treasuries, and so they still have. They're still in existence, even though some of them are not really active anymore. But they're still in existence, and they still have treasuries. So everybody's got some money.
Where they took in
Bigelow
for membership?
Bigelow he sponsored. That's what he did. He got the 3 groups together, and he said, look, I'm willing to fund some research if you can find some worthy projects.
I believe he put in $35,000 of his own money. If my memory serves me correctly, I was in and all that during that time, but I'm believing it was $35,000 before he pulled out. But it had to do with if he was putting the money in, he wanted to control a part of it. Now, that's just hearsay.
At first he
didn't
want. He said, "Listen, it's up to you guys what you want to do." But then he did, and he funded other projects. They had investigators that would go around and investigate current sightings. So he funded that, and he funded other things besides that. So at first, like I said, or like you said, he let the groups pick what their projects were. Now I have to say, 35,000 is that's too low. He spent a lot more than that.
Or maybe he promised more.
No, he put in more.
Okay, so how do we have access? Is that public knowledge? Because this has been part of the controversy among all our groups that we've been a part of, our investigators.
Because I got more. I got around 30,000.
Oh my goodness! Oh, okay.
And Dick Hall got 10,000 to finish off the UFO evidence number 2, and there were other.
Goodness.
So there were other things. So already and besides that, Bigelow contributed to the treasuries because he knew that having to do this research coalition thing, and he is pretty good about this actually. He knows, hey, I can't give you, if I give you money for grants, but then you have to administer them, that costs you money. So he gave the groups money to help administer the grants. So already we're way ahead of 35,000.
Wow! So that you got almost 35,000 yourself then, just by it yourself alone.
Right.
So,
and my thing was I was going to travel. Today we don't need to do what I was doing, but then we didn't have computers with everything, computerized. So what I did is I traveled through 46 states and 5 Canadian provinces and Washington, D.C. So for 2.5 years I was on the road almost constantly, going from one place to another. So like I started off in West Virginia, went to Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Illinois, and I went out to the far west, so Washington, Idaho, Oregon, across Canada, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan. So, and what I would do is stop off at state libraries or legislative libraries or historical societies and check newspapers. Now, my project was to find stuff for 1947 and redo the find more information about the wave of 1947, which was really big, and people think that it's all about UFOs at a distance, but they're not. There's just like everything that you have today: landings, electromagnetic material, people being injured or physiological effects, being blinded by UFOs, or being one guy who was having has a heart problem. He was UFO flew right close to his home, and he had problems. His wife could attest to that because she was a nurse. And most of the things you find today, there were landings and all these other things you find today. You find in 1947.
Now, Barry Greenwood, where does he come into play? Does he do 47 forward or CUFOs only, or did he get assigned as one of the investigators? And do you know who was lead investigator under Robert Bigelow? I haven't done a complete research project or a complete investigation or followed the money either. So you probably have more data on all the various groups.
The three groups supplied their investigators, but Walter Webb was the investigator, and him that's probably what started the whole thing about the coalition and Bigelow splitting, because Webb investigated a very spectacular meteor, and Bigelow was unhappy with the investigation because he thought it was a UFO and he wasn't going to be told it was a meteor. So,
was that the one in Russia that came down, or is this too late?
No, it was at the time. It was at the time of the coalition, so it was a spectacular meteor, but it wasn't that spectacular. And
I understand. So he already signed his lead investigator. Folks, usually there's one. The way the federal government has the way we do projects is we'll usually assign 1 to 5 investigators on a particular project, and then we'll assign a lead investigator. And on my projects, I'm usually lead, but I've also been on other projects, just a team player. And so this Mr. Webb, right? What was his first name? That was on the
Walter.
Bigelow. Walter Webb. So he was lead investigator. Now he was. How many was on your team as far as investigators?
No, there's no teams. There's no teams.
Oh, there was no teams in your group. Each person was assigned. Did you do it chronologically?
Walter Webb was his job. He was the lead investigator to investigate current UFO sightings. Now, Project 47. What I did is I went online and started an email list. So I got 300 people to volunteer to look at newspapers in their own area or to send me things that they had in their files. And 1947 was the primary thing I was doing, but the other secondary things I was doing from 1900 up till 1946, and then from 48 up to 65. We were looking at those items too. After I got through looking at, if I went somewhere, I looked first at for 47 incidents, and after that I tried to look at some of these others. And so I visited almost close to 100 archives.
Well, I think it's important that we get this. This is part of the disgruntled volunteers in social media and all the groups, because a lot of them we shut down. Like you said, some money's still in some of the coffers or banks or treasuries and our different groups, and then we're bringing them all together. And then Robert Bigelow comes in and starts our STAR team investigators.
That's later. That's later on. That's later on with MUFON. So.
All right, well, in the beginning, when Robert comes in, let's talk about right there with him and Mr. Webb and you. So, because this may all be new to Janet and Suzanne, because I don't think either one of them have been in on the inside like you and I have, or on teams or in investigations. But, Janet, you can correct me. You haven't done any in-house for any of these associations. I know Suzanne hasn't, because she told me she hasn't been into any ufology. But what about you, Janet? You haven't been in internal investigations, right? She may be stepped away right now. Okay. So, but Suzanne, you haven't, right?
No, I have. I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and I'm just holding the energy that there's an opportunity for me to learn, and I have a lot to learn, a lot.
Right.
So, what's interesting in listening to you talk, Dan, is that your mind is brilliant, it's focused, it's clear, it's articulate, and it's very exact. You have an extremely methodical thought process, exacting and scientific, and the details and the dates that you remember without stumbling is just inspiring.
Well, that's funny. Most of the time my memory is abducted.
Well, it sits you down and gets you on the right tangent, and your memory comes through in a way that's just absolutely flawless. It's really beautiful.
Right. So, yeah, like I say, if we're to replicate this project today, you could sit behind a computer in your home, and there are all kinds of newspapers online. You could do exactly what I did by visiting different libraries and stuff. Mm-hmm. So this was, however, there are things that you can't, even today, you can't visit the National Archives online, even though back in the before 2000 they said, oh, everything will be online, don't worry, and the Library of Congress was saying, we'll be the only library in the country, everybody else will have every book there is online and everything. And I do want to go off on a tangent here. The fireflies are invading. The fireflies are invading.
Okay.
They're right here at the window looking in.
Oh my goodness! Is that time of year for you?
Yeah, I have an old farm up here, and of course we used to have lots of fireflies, and then they're in trouble as far as they're not. I don't think they're going to be extinct, but they're in a lot of trouble, and this year they really came back.
Well, tell people where you're calling from, and Janet may join us again. She's live. I mean, we're all live on the air, but we're all open mic. So she may have. She had explained to me she had workers in her house. That might have been the sound, so she muted. You remember when I asked her to come on a while ago?
Yeah.
So, but she's open. So when she comes back,
I'm on an old farm in Connecticut. It goes back.
Connecticut.
It goes back before the.
Civil War?
No, it goes back. It probably was here during the Revolution.
Wow!
Whoa! Well, there you go.
So I'm in the Northeast, which is not very heavily populated, and it's got like what we call it is the last green valley for Connecticut, and. This is mostly, it used to be farm, but it's all now gone back to forest.
Wow.
Yeah. My place looks like a jungle now. I mean, everything came up this year. Sometimes we have sparser years, but no, this is the green is just is fantastic. I don't want to get off.
I know people. Yeah, that's okay. I understand you. I really appreciate you being human and sharing, and I really appreciate Suzanne helping us. And she's new to you, and she likes the way you talk, so that's really good for our archivist and for our shows. Mm-hmm. I think it's wonderful, and Janet, I'm sure, will return with some questions here. But I know that what we need to do tonight is have people like somebody like Suzanne coming in is very important, folks, because there's various groups and associations in ufology, and I've noticed a lot of the young kids doing their own radio shows, and no disrespect, but a lot of on YouTube they just talk like they own ufology and know what they're talking about with the word and toss it around, and I've noticed a lot of people using alienology now. We help start all that. It's separate from ufology, and I'm really helping push that with phenomenology. And, of course, the government started, as your groups a long time ago started anomalous phenomena. So we have UAP and Associates now. But the point is, for me, is to say that old guys, like in the Men in Black shows, and TV, always reflects real life, but, we're moving our reality of ufology and our alienology and the study of phenomenology and unidentified flying objects, so to speak, but into our folk life groups, too, and having our own divisions, because it's so costly now. Yes, we can do a lot of things online, but we're doing our best. There's many flavors of ufology. And I wanted the Jan Aldrich flavor from back in the day, because I remember inside MUFON, and I couldn't be a member at that time, but I watched it all happen. But I remember in the old days when I was an investigator, and I couldn't be inside, but I did work for the government. But there was talk of the civilian and the government coming in and taking over, and then Robert Bigelow being a contractor for the government, controlling space, and you can say all that happened in the 80s forward or the 90s forward, but when do you recall? Because that's when I was asked to help, and some groups were quoting me at 2007 in UFO Digest, and I had a lot of groups asking for help. I guess it was because of Facebook back then. But can you tell me do you remember when you got involved with Robert Bigelow and Mr. Webb and all of that? Because it was confusing.
When Walter Webb, I've known him long before Bigelow. I knew him long before I went into the Army. And I was in the Army for 25 years. I knew Walter Webb back in the 60s when I was going to college in Boston. He was the chief astronomer at the planetarium up there. So I knew him way back before Bigelow. Bigelow was in 90. I'm not sure when the coalition was. I think it's.
Well, I know he went out with
92, 93,
Friedman.
But no, I don't think so.
Well, he was on. They took a plane out to him and Stan and McCarty. I think Tom McCarty.
Could be. I don't know.
Berliner. I believe Don Berliner was there. Yeah, there's a lot of history that we've got to pull back together. But that was in 92 to 94, I think. But so you're thinking he came in about that time? There's so many of us old guys got to pull the stories together.
Okay, so who are we talking about? Bigelow?
Well, I was talking about Bigelow and Berliner, Stanton Friedman, and one other guy. It was Tom McCarty, I believe. I forget now. They went and did the Anderson interview about 47 Roswell. When we had the Corona, when Stan was working on the crash at Corona, and I went out to visit Glenn Dennis in the 90s. So, and Roswell. You know who the Roswell story?
I can't see Walter Webb doing that.
Not Walter, Bigelow.
Oh, Bigelow may have done. Yeah.
So Walter's a lot older. Was he with NICAP? How did he get involved as an astronomer? Or did he join some of these flying saucers?
He was a friend of Dick Hall, so he was the astronomer advisor for NICAP. Astronomer
advisor for NICAP. Now, is that in one of the books you guys wrote long time ago?
Well, it does. You know, in most UFO investigators, they list the advisors. There's a list of advisors, and Walter Webb's in the advisor thing. So he investigated items around in Massachusetts and New Hampshire in the early 1960s till about 1964, and then Ray Fowler took over most of the investigations, and with the Massachusetts, he formed an investigative unit up in Massachusetts, so it was a Massachusetts subcommittee, and Walter was just more or less an advisor, but he was an investigator in New England there in the early 60s, and then I met him when I went to college.
Now, is he before Don Berliner? Because Berliner is the one I talked to on the phone when I was
Berliner was well, he got involved when he was younger. He got involved with the Ground Observer Corps, and somehow he whittled his way into being in the Ground Observer Corps. And so somehow he whittled his way into the filter center. So he got to see the reports that came through the filter center. He wasn't really supposed to, but, they had so much turnover in the filter center that he was just there, and nobody questioned him being there. He said, it's like he said, somebody would come in, they'd introduce him and say, yeah, he's been here for quite a while. They didn't really know what he was doing there, but they just accepted that he was part of the filter center. So he got to get UFO cases. If you go to the UFO evidence, I think it's in there. So he was an inside job guy, getting some of these reports that were being sent from the various ground observers to the filter center. So he was. He got in, and that was long before NICAP. That was
okay.
It was in the early, mid 50s. Let's put it that way. And
we're going to be doing Who's Who now on the one where Berliner shows up on our Northern Ontario UFO Research and Study. Now, does your name come up, or do you like the way they're doing their research and study? Northern Ontario.
That's Michael. Good grief.
Well, your picture's on here for the United States.
I know.
Along
it's
with Kenneth Arnold.
Michael. I'm going to get his name wrong. I'm just having a blank. Michael.
You want me to?
So,
you want me to look it up?
Yeah. So he was one of the early contributors to my effort.
Oh, really?
So when I was going around, I met him in Ontario with I'm having Earl Bruce Knapp.
Yeah, Bruce Knapp.
And Earl Bruce Knapp was he ran the UFO updates email list, and they had about 1,000 people on it.
Oh, my gosh.
Send stuff in all the time. But Michael went ahead and he helped me with gathering Canadian reports. And he's got, like I said, he's got his own website now. Like I said, as I was going around the country, I didn't necessarily just go to libraries too. I visited ufologists, and they let me look at their collections. So I visited Chris Rakowski in Manitoba, and I visited people all around the country when I was doing the Project 1947. I visited people at different places, and of course, one of the places is Walt Andrews let me look at the MUFON files, and that's when they were in Texas. Seguin, Texas, and he let me come for an afternoon on Sunday, and I didn't know it till after I get ready to leave that he was going to go somewhere with his wife and go to a dinner or something, and he didn't say anything. He said, "Come on over," and so he let me sit there until I looked through. Well, I was mainly looking for 1947, but I told him I'll look from everything from before 1947 up to 1950. And he said, that's fine. He said, my arrangement is by states. So
okay.
each each state had a filing cabinet or a filing drawer, depending on how many sightings they had. And since MUFON was founded in 1969, they didn't have very many early sightings like I was looking for. So I was able to do that in a couple hours, and then I left. I got ready to leave, and then I really was embarrassed because he and his wife they were just waiting around for me to leave so they could go to this dinner. But he was really nice about it. So, and of course I went to Dick Hall's house and saw his material and various people that had been in ufology for a while. And I'm sorry to say some of their material is just missing now. Louis Parrish in Arkansas, he had 2 barns full of UFO files, and he had a lot of early material before 1947. And when he passed away, almost none of that was salvageable. They'd been out there in the barns, got wet, got dirty. It was like big bricks of black stuff, all held together with dirt and bird feces and things like that. So I think the amount that Dave Mahler salvaged was only about 2 filing drawers. So that's a real tragedy there. And like I said, I visited people all over the country. And some were no longer in ufology, but they let me look at their material.
Well, this young man, Michael Deschamps, or Deschamps, however you say it.
Yeah, Michael Deschamps. That's it. See, I keep wanting to say Dassault because I know a Dassault up there. Yeah, Michael Deschamps. He was, he and Earl Bruce Knapp, and I think we met 3 or 4 other people up there. And so I've got it in my notebook somewhere, but...
Okay, so you agree that his are pretty substantial, and would you agree that I should include those? Would you agree that I should include his link, like yours, in our UFO Association, bringing all the different links together?
Okay. He has some excellent things there.
Okay, well he'll be.
He helped me with he helped me with Canadian government material too. He had done a lot of research.
So he's a good guy. He's a good guy, right? Awesome. Yeah. Good. Well, I look forward. I may have talked to him before. I don't really remember. So he's going to be one of our Who's Who people. So anybody that's got a really good sharing open source like for people. Now, some of them still have membership, right? But right now we don't. You and I don't. But we're doing oral archives like your group you recommended. But he has published material and letters to the editor, newspaper interviews, television interviews, and then he links them. So we'll do our best, folks. I've only got Janet and Suzanne and what websites we've got, but we're looking at scientists, UFOs, pilots, cops, saucers, and Suzanne's brought to the table one of the old 30-year-old police officer or officer. We're going to get them all together, folks. We're going to do our best with Ace Folklife and have different divisions. So Northern Ontario UFO Research Study. Now, do they affiliate with you personally or with CUFOS and MUFON? How do you guys interplay in UFO research?
Well,
and study? Everybody just helps.
Yeah, I don't have 300 people. I started off, and people. I got together with the people in Italy and France, Spain, United Kingdom, and even Iran. We had a fellow on there from Iran for a while. It was a pretty lively thing, but email gives way to other things. So then there's other other interests, and people lose interest for a time, or they may just leave the field altogether. So I'm still in contact with Michael, but we don't really do that much anymore. I look at his site. If you look at his site, that's what I was doing, more or less.
Okay, well, I'll just
you can see all kinds of newspapers from Northern Ontario that he's collected. He and I did the same kind of thing, although I tried to do it all over the United States and Canada. He's doing it mostly for Ontario. We're kindred spirits, let's put it that way. And he was helping me understand some of the Canadian history there. So he was sending me things from the archives and commenting on them. And he does have, I think he was writing a book. I'm not sure if he ever published it. But I had Don Ledger in Nova Scotia, and he just maritime UFOs. He published a book on UFOs in his area, and he was, of course, very big in the investigation of Shag Harbor, which is still ongoing.
So apparently it's still who's doing what project or by location, and we're just going to have to train all the new people, the new kids coming in, how it's done. And I do know MUFON does offer training, but pretty much now, is this what you understand, that MUFON is still the largest organization in the world that is a nonprofit worldwide, internationally? Is that what you understand among all these groups?
I guess so. Yeah, I don't think there's any other large, serious organization the size of MUFON.
All right. So
they've got a huge amount of investigations that have been done, over 100,000. So, and they have also acquired people's and organizations' files as people quit or pass away. So they have a huge amount of material. They have some of Stringfield's work, and this is just like kind of NICAP and CUFOS. And the CUFOS project was, for a while there, MUFON was going to do it, and they were going to do it with a professional company. However, there's problems with that.
You
get dedicated amateurs who want to make the best images they can. Maybe their labor doesn't cost anything, so maybe that's a little better than a company that's going to cost $15,000 to $25,000 to scan all these reports.
Scanning reports. If we give them box loads, that's like what I used to do for the government. Sit at a table all day and scan in under a Kodak Zap microfiche all day. That wasn't a lot of fun, and then you have to change out the Kodak film. But nowadays, we'll be scanning it like you do banking things, I guess, in the Internet, so we got to have our scanners. Now, how are we going to get this all done? Because, tonight is about the world view. So, and you of all people are the best one, since you've already done this with Robert Bigelow and other groups and taken on a global scale.
Yeah, well, let's not get confused here. I've never had any. I never met Robert Bigelow, and we haven't had any real interaction together.
And he's Mr. Buck, so, and I guess he can
was
only
Bucks,
help
but
so
the
much.
Bucks came through the UFO Research Coalition. It didn't come directly from him.
UFO Research Coalition. So he just somehow worked out with himself and his money in a grant or giving amount
it
that
went
he
to
granted.
The UFO Research Coalition was a non-profit, so so that's how the money came to me. I didn't deal with Bigelow at all, and I never went to any of the meetings of the UFO Research Coalition. I just heard about them from Dick Hall and some of the other people, Walt Andrews, and some of the other people that were involved at the time.
Now, Walt's dead now, isn't he? I'm losing. Is
yeah,
Walt dead?
He passed away.
Yeah.
Yes, he passed away. That's why MUFON is no longer in Texas. It's in.
Yeah.
It's moved as a new director's appointed. It's moved. So
well,
they have
Jan
to move
Harzan was in California, and I know Captain, unless he's moved, was down there at the Cincinnati line, and I was in across the line. I was over in Beaver Dam, Kentucky. Had to go through Louisville and go over to Cincinnati. And I think that's where he and his wife are picking up the ball to hold it for us until we get everybody organized again and public relations and who's doing what. But as far as I know, the directors, some of them look fairly young. I don't even know who they are anymore. I think the captain's the only one I know on MUFON. But folks, we've got a lot of work to do, and we can't unorganize what we've already got organized. So we've got
here's the problem.
A lot of people don't want to do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Here's the problem. A lot of people do research and investigations, and it's a lot of effort, and especially investigations, if you do it right, it takes a lot of effort. And then writing it up and sending it in, and then to have it disappear like it has with a lot of old organizations or individuals when they pass. Steve Putnam ran the two-state study group. When he passed, his wife threw everything in the dumpster.
Great. Okay.
In fact, she called some of the people that Steve Putnam worked with, and she said, "Come on over and you can." Now, what she did is, before she called anybody, she got a dumpster out at her house. She threw all the stuff that Putnam had personally in the dumpster and had it carted away. Then she called these people to come over. And then she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's just been carted away." That was her last act of vengeance, because she didn't like what he was doing. He was spending too much time with UFOs and not enough with her. So,
wow. So that's part of our culture. Suzanne needs to hear this.
That's real vengeance for you, let me tell you.
Wow. Yeah, there's nobody really has the right to destroy those things. And so we really have to, boy, was she angry.
She was.
Really, that is just really an angry person. So, but also we have to think that maybe there was something actually really wrong with her, that she would think that was a good way to handle things.
Yeah, or, you almost lose your husband to this ephemeral phenomena that's going on. So I can see, there are a lot of women that are unhappy about the way that their husbands get so involved in this that they and it's not. In some cases, it's wives too that get too involved.
Well, let's look at the world view, because Suzanne's coming in, and she just volunteered today, so she's brand new green, and she wasn't into the UFO business, but she understands the ancient myths and legends and how it affects the world, and she knows about them. And, and Janet, of course, has been doing this with me archiving for at least since 2012, so I know she's on our side. But, we're doing oral archives, so I've got these from 2012, including your history, and we're hopefully going to get people to help me transcribe yours, and hopefully it won't be after you're gone, but it may be. I don't know. But the thing is, we'll have them oral reports. So let's, Suzanne, do you have any questions for Jan? Because Jan is 76, and I'd like him to, I don't know how long he's going to live or how long he expects to live, but, every time I get to talk to him is a blessing for me to get it here, because he knows I want to help him, and we all the new people that hopefully we'll be training. I hope I'm going to be 69, folks, so I'm not a spring chicken, but we've got to get all the kids into something organized with all these associations around the world and get them working together. So I need to get all the links of people that have been working with Jan or Jan knows, and that will help with the ones I know. Because, I know a lot of the old guys, but they didn't know me on the inside or outside. I've been doing this since 1967, but it's hard to keep up with everything. So I've got a lot of women that will help us, but we've got to know how to bring all these groups together. So Worldview, Jan, and Suzanne, on the Worldview, how can we help all these groups? Because there's a lot of issues we're not really getting into. Janet could have helped on that. But you just heard one.
Is Janet on the phone with us still?
No,
yes.
She dropped off. She was, but she dropped off because of she had house banging in the background, so she got
Jan,
off.
So Jan, are you? Well, first of all, can I say thank you for dedicating your life to collecting this information and creating a chronological history, and thank you today for sharing your oral history with us, because your oral history is just as valid as a written history, and I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us in a very, very honest way. It's a laborious process for you to put this together in chronological order, but I've really enjoyed learning just a little piece. It feels like I just have a snapshot, and so thank you. First of all, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've done oral histories too.
Okay,
about 200 of them.
Okay, cool. So I have a question for you now.
Yeah.
So you started doing this when you were in college. So that was 1960. Is that right?
Well, no, I started doing this about 1958.
1958. Okay, so 62 years. So you started doing this when you were, how old were you? You must have, oh my gosh, that's not, how's that possible?
I was in high school. I was just,
in high school. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And are you married? Have you married? Do you have children?
I have been married, yeah. I have a son, and I have 3 grandkids.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, really lovely. Okay. And so the whole time I was listening to you, I was thinking, well, what was the most interesting story that you got involved in and that you researched? What was the one that you personally... So I think that, just your pure history stands on its own, but I'm just curious as a human, what is the most interesting story to you personally? Not recognition, verifiable, or anything else. Just what's the most interesting story for you as a person?
Well, I used to travel around with Tom Talene. I said we have 200 oral histories, but he's the main one with oral history. But he would take me along on a lot of these trips. We would go around. This is not the Project 47 thing. This is an oral history project that we were on.
Okay.
So we would travel around the country, going from one place to another, interviewing scientists, people from the government, witnesses, and I think we had started out in Arizona, and then we made our way. We did a couple interviews there, and then we made our way to New Mexico. We interviewed a witness there, went through Texas and Oklahoma, and ended up in all the way down in a little tip in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know anything about this case. I had never read anything about it. Well, I think I'd read something in Hynek, but Hynek doesn't do it justice. So this was the pilot who witnessed this case. He's a B-52 pilot.
Okay.
And
what year is this?
1968.
Fabulous. Okay, good.
So they kept it out of the Condon report because they fussed around with the investigation until after the report was written and on the Secretary of Air Force's desk. So it didn't. It didn't get in that. It was a fantastic case. Right around the end of the project, there were a lot of fantastic cases that didn't get investigated or only cursory. So, anyways, they had been on nuclear alert, and after you go off nuclear alert, you've got to everything's got to be checked out, the plane, the personnel, and so they were on like a 48-hour flight. They took off and all the equipment and everything, and the people were checked out, and they did certain things that they had to do. That's every nuclear plane that's ever been, B-52 that's ever been on a nuclear duty. So they're coming back to their base at Minot, North Dakota, and as they come in to land, the tower calls them and says, "We've got something that we want you to check out." And he says, "What is it? What is it?" He says, "Just keep flying where you are. It's coming to you."
Okay.
So, okay, the pilot's flying the plane. He doesn't see what's going on. This UFO comes up in back of him.
Okay.
And the guy at the radar, he sees this thing, and it's acting. I mean, it's going over 1,000 miles an hour. And it's in back of the plane, and it's going from one side to the other and doing all kinds of weird things. And it's fairly big, and so he starts taking pictures from the radar.
No way.
Pictures of the radar.
No way. Okay.
So he's taking a radar picture. Well, it's just, he just knew to do it. I mean, that's the way they're trained, Right. So it's something unusual, so he's going to take a picture, and he takes a whole bunch of radar pictures. The pilot hasn't seen it because it's in the back of him, but he knows it's there because they're telling him that. So they come into land, and the thing is following them. And at a certain point, the radios go out. Now, this is a nuclear-capable aircraft.
Right.
The radios don't go out. If a radio goes out, they have another one just exactly the same that they can turn that one on.
Okay.
Both radios go on. They have redundant systems. Both radios go off. Switching to other frequencies doesn't do anything. Finally, the UFO goes down towards the ground, and they're supposed to land. Then a voice besides the controller at the control tower comes on and tells them to go around and make another go around and look at the UFO. So they look at the UFO. It's really strange. It's a body like an egg, and then it looks like it has a tube coming up and a cabin that's separated, connected to the egg-shaped thing with like on a tube.
Okay.
And so they come back around. Now they didn't have permission to land, but the pilot said, "I'm going to land it." That's bad news. You don't do that. You don't. You know. It's. But anyways, that's what he did. So he's coming in, and it's flying alongside him, and he gets a good view of it. So.
Wow.
There's several pilots on the plane. One guy was just there for a checkout, but he's the senior guy. So they land. Now the tower knows what's going on, and the tower says, "Send the senior man out here to the operations, and he's going to be debriefed." Now, they never told anybody anything else. Nobody ever talked to the rest of them.
Wow.
Except the radar guy and the electronics guy. A couple of guys came from the Pentagon, full colonel, and they had, you know, after the incident happened, they had a roll of film with all the radar images on it, and they discussed it with the radar officers. So they said, "Well, did they ever tell you not to talk about it?" And he said, "They didn't have to tell us not to talk about it. We knew not to talk about it. There's nuclear weapons. You don't talk about that stuff."
Jan, do you have a lung condition?
I have. I had cancer of the throat, so.
Oh, I when I first listened to you, I thought that maybe you needed there was something you could take to help you, because I could hear you having trouble with it. So I was kind of trying to figure that one out with you.
Yeah. But so it's not very pleasant talking for a long time. In any case, these we're there now. This is
68.
68. So we're there in 94. And
wow.
I remember we did this interview outside, and we're in this guy owns a lot of land, and we're there, and I'm just looking around, and I'm saying to myself, this story can't be true. It's too fantastic.
Okay.
And I'm just enjoying the woods too. You know, it's just it's really and. Up till now, it's just been him, and I have looked at the Project Blue Book case file, so I know a little bit about it.
Good.
But I still haven't. It still hasn't sunk into me how fantastic this case is, and so we asked him. Now, this is years ago, and his crew has been broken up, and he went to Vietnam and flew aircraft in the Vietnam War, and he hasn't. He occasionally might have seen one or two of the guys, but he hadn't seen for a long time, and he was having trouble remembering the names. So, how are we ever going to follow up with other people? And then he goes into his military records, and he's got all his, things about his awards and a lot of other stuff, and he pulls out this photograph.
Wow.
And when I saw it, I wanted to start crying.
Wow. Okay. Do it.
Because here is the B-52 that they were in, and here's all the guys out in front of the B-52, and you can read all their names.
Oh.
And once he sees that, he knows everybody's full name. And so we have everybody's full name, and we were able to trace down everybody on that aircraft that was alive. One of the guys had died. And they all told their story from their vantage point. So, like the radar guys couldn't see out the aircraft. They could only see, what was on the radar screen. And the guy in the back, he was there's a gun in the back. There's a gunner in the back, so he saw just when the UFO was behind them.
Okay.
But we're able to go and get everybody's witness statement on tape. So you might have remembered Peter Jennings. He was a newscaster at ABC News.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now we have all this story. Plus, we were able to talk to some of the other people on the ground, like the military police that were watching some of this. They had their own sightings. And Peter Jennings was doing supposedly extraterrestrial life. That's what he was doing. And he was going to have a little section on UFOs, but it just turned the other way around. It turned out there was going to be a UFO report, an hour report on UFOs and a little bit about extraterrestrial life. So ABC News went back and interviewed all these guys.
Okay.
They didn't trust a bunch of amateurs.
Okay.
So they went back and interviewed all these people, and he had about a 4-minute segment, which is huge for nightly news.
Yeah.
He not only did it once, he did it twice. This 4-minute segment about the Minot case on his news program. Then he had the UFO special that he had, and he re-interviewed it. So to me, that's the most fantastic case. Now, the radar photographs just fell into our lap by accident.
Okay.
The intelligence officer at Minot had kept 12 he thought were the best radar photographs, and he had given it to somebody in Minnesota MUFON, and Tom had gone to a Minnesota MUFON meeting, and he started talking about this case, and the guy says, "I think I have those photographs."
No way. No way.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Okay, so Tom took over this case, and he investigated with people in Europe, radar expert in Europe, who's a physicist.
Okay.
An air traffic controller in England who also knows radars backwards and forwards. And then we went to the Air and Space Museum in New Mexico, and one of the guys on the staff there was a lieutenant colonel from the Army, who worked at White Sands, and we're there talking to him, and Tom shows him the photographs.
Wow.
So this guy is a radar expert also, so he's looking at him, he's telling us what's going on in the photographs, and this is what Tom's already heard from other people, and he's sitting there without knowing anything about the case. He's just sitting there telling us what's happening. It's so clear on the radar. And so to me, that's the most fantastic case. It's the most one of the most thoroughly investigated cases. Tom talked to he talked to a couple of generals that were involved in it. They They didn't give out much information, though.
So take a breath for a second, and I'm gonna talk. Did you get a cough drop or something?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay, good. Okay, so here's what I hear you telling me in this story, is that it's coming to the end of the project of the research, and as it's coming to the end of the project, you're out collecting these stories, and it's a long road trip, and you end up with this person who was in Kentucky, and he was the person who was on this flight that documents the actual interaction of his plane and a UFO, and he has the photographs, he has the independent histories, he has the names, and then this becomes a story with Peter Jennings on ABC, and then different experts, scientists, specialists, people that only do this specific type of work, verify all of the documents, and the documents that you need in order to make this a full story, complete with documentation, scientific evidence, sort of lands on you, and you put together and document a story basically from point A to the conclusion, and it is documented, it's publicized, and it is verified. What a great story. Thank you. Well,
I didn't do it all, but the other fellow that was with me, Tom Tulane, I mean, he did it. He did the most of it. I was in on the beginning when we interviewed that pilot. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it was after a long trip, and we'd interviewed a bunch of people, and let me tell you, I was starting to get a little skeptical about the whole thing anyways. Like I said, I'm sitting there in this woods, and we're filming in the woods.
Uh-huh.
It's beautiful, and it's kind of distracting, but this guy's story is interesting. But I'm not really buying it until he pulls out that picture with the whole crew there, because I'm thinking to myself, how are we ever going to verify all of this?
What proof do you have, huh?
Yeah, and he pulls out that picture, and then everybody's name is right there, and he remembers everybody's name, and it took a little while to run everybody down, and I remember Tom asked the radar officer. He asked the radar officer, he said, why are you talking about this to me now?
Mm-hmm.
You know you weren't supposed to talk about this, right? And he says, you know what? We won the Cold War. He said, I can talk about it now.
Wow. So,
that's what he said. He said he felt like he could talk about it because, you know, all the alerts they had been on and all the staying up in the air sometimes for days,
right,
flying around. He felt like he had, he had this story, and he was able to tell it now.
Wow, what an amazing experience. And so I love the story. I love the human story. Where the human story comes in.
It's on the internet. It's Minot. You can look it up. Minot Air Force Base, October 28, 1968. I think that's the .com or something like that.
Okay.
You could find it easily on Google.
It changed your life. That story changed your life.
Well, no, it didn't change my life, but it's one of the most important cases that I ever worked on. And I didn't do most of the work. Tom did most of the work.
Okay.
But,
thanks for being modest, but let's hear the whole story. We love it. We want the story.
Yeah.
You know.
So and Tom did work with Bigelow on this, so we talked about Bigelow. Bigelow hired some B-52 crew people to verify the story, and they were going to try to take it to Congress because there were these congressmen had heard the story.
Okay.
And they were interested in holding hearings on it. So we got within an inch of going to Congress with the story, and it kind of fell through. And
Okay.
Bigelow was pushing that.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
so any other so I know it's getting hard for you to talk now. So any other things that you can, like, I mean, that's a big story. I mean, that's like it's a great story. It's got a great timeline. It's a great story. You're real modest. It doesn't have, I had only a part in it and everything else. But anything else to that story that you think is interesting, or you think that this story, I mean, it's a complete story. That's the part that I really like. It's a
well, that's
story.
what it is with UFOs. There's so many things that are so incomplete. There's not enough. This is one that's pretty. You could research this for another couple of years, really, but it's pretty well. The story is pretty well complete as far as what happened with the people. Now, there may have been an attempted intercept. It may have been picked up on other radars.
Okay.
And that we don't know that yet.
We don't know that. Okay.
And we probably never will, because one of the guys that probably picked it up with the radar, he's paranoid about talking to people.
Now, what Kevin Randall, it says the article was taken from Scientific Ufology, written by Captain Kevin D. Randall, U.S. Air Force Reserve, USAFR. So this is in the returns to UFOcasebook.com. Now, do you want to verify that you like UFO Casebook? Is that one we should carry with you're okay with UFO Casebook, or do you know who runs that?
I don't know who runs it.
UFO Casebook.
They got some interesting things on it. Like I said, the Minot case, the actual best documentation is on the website I told you about.
Okay, so repeat that for Theresa right now. Go ahead and repeat that.
Now, what to me is interesting, so I'm doing this scanning now.
Okay.
So this will probably be interesting to you as a historian.
Okay.
So we're doing it by date.
Okay.
So when I label the case file, the first thing is the date, the year, the month, the day.
Right.
Then the location, what continent, country, location, what kind of case it is. We got little abbreviations for that. Witness and investigator. Okay, so I got one like this on my site. It's October 14th, April 14th, 1953.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a real spectacular case, but it's hidden in Blue Book because it's mixed in another case. They're filing. It's atrocious as far as their filing. Things are misfiled. They lost things over the years. Only because Hynek got a lot of this stuff do we know about some of these cases.
Huh.
Anyways, this is a rather spectacular case off of North Japan in 1953. The Korean War isn't over.
Right.
There was an incident similar to that, to this one, about a month prior. That's why this case is misfiled with this thing, with the earlier case, because the intelligence people noticed that it was kind of similar. But it's completely, to a certain extent, it's completely different. Navy plane, after its patrol, is flying back to Japan. They see this UFO on their radar, and this Navy plane is chock full of electronics. So the thing is giving off electronics and everything. So they figure it's something from the Soviet Union.
Okay.
And it's big. And they're trying to outrun it back to Japan. And then these smaller things appear on the radar screen, up to about 10 of them.
Wow. Now,
they're flying along, and these smaller things are making passes at them. They're not shooting, but they're very aggressive.
Okay.
So the pilot takes the plane down to 400 feet above the water.
Wow.
And they're going under him. These things are going under. About 70 passes are being made during this thing.
Okay.
I'm going to put me on mute because of the cat.
Okay.
So they're doing this, and this is like something out of the future has suddenly appeared to this Navy plane.
Wow.
Because this is like a AWACS plane, which is, command and control, and also detecting enemies and things like that.
Okay.
But in 1953, it's like 10 or 15 years in the future that this thing exists, especially with the Soviets. It's probably 20 years in the future.
Okay.
And all these planes are making, as far as safety goes, this is completely, unbelievable. So this thing is in there as a UFO report.
Okay.
There's no analysis or anything. It just says it's similar to the first incident, which was not as spectacular as this one. So they make for Japan, and that's, they finally get away.
Okay. So it's an interesting commentary from you, because what you're saying is that when there were other situations that could have been investigated fully, they were not.
Right.
And,
so this is one that the government investigated. So it was my friend wrote this up. I mean, several of us knew this. I think I pointed it out to Brad Sparks. I think that's how he learned about it. Anyways, he wrote it up as an entry for a UFO encyclopedia.
Okay.
And then my friend found on this Korean War veteran site weekly combat reports from the first U.S. Marine Corps Air Wing.
Okay.
So what these guys had was they had, how much, if they engaged things on the ground, what damage they thought they caused, or if they got into fights with the communists, how many planes were shot down, or how many of our planes were damaged. It's typical combat summaries for each week.
Good.
They also had UFO.
Okay.
So this is differentiated from unidentified aircraft. It's actually UFO, so it's differentiated.
Okay.
So if they saw an unidentified aircraft, that was different from a UFO. So here in the and these guys they're reporting stuff from all over Korea, not just their area where the Marines were. So one of the reports is the April 14th, 1953 incident.
Okay.
The same incident that's in the Project Blue Book case files, except it has more or different information. So if you put the two of them together,
what's the story?
The story becomes a little more complicated, but it also refines some of the things in the Project Blue Book case file. So it's a confirmation and amplification.
But
so
it's also it's substantiated, right? I mean, the two reports, it's cross-referencing, substantiates because it's verification of replicating the results.
Right. Plus it amplifies the report we already had. So that is on my website.
Okay.
Brad Sparks rewrote his article is in the encyclopedia with the new information, and to me that's the kind of thing that I'm doing with this. Well, it's a bonus from scanning this stuff.
Okay.
Because if I come up with a document like this Marine Corps combat thing, and I've already got the Project Blue Book thing scanned, and this one goes in, and it's the same date, they come up right together.
Yes. Huh. That is the scientist inside of you who is really good at documenting, verifying, and clarifying your results. Really interesting work. I mean, really interesting work. So, thanks for sharing that story. That's really a good story. So talk to me now. I hope you kind of get a breath or another cough drop. Talk to me about what you think was one of the most challenging stories for you to be involved in personally, whether it was challenging for evidence or it was challenging for believability, or it was just simply challenging because you knew it was true but you didn't know what to do in order to substantiate the evidence. Talk to me about a story that was difficult for you, that you really believed but was difficult.
We're at the end of the archiving time, so what about tomorrow night? We got 2 minutes. So
so why don't we talk about actual history?
Okay.
Like I followed things through the years, and people in ufology don't understand how things came about. And I've looked at the documents to figure out how they came about, and I was fortunate enough to find a number of documents where I could really amplify the history of what was being done to investigate these things by the government.
Good. You know what? I really enjoy your conversation. I mean, I don't want you to think I'm sitting here flattering you, but I really, really feel your conversation. I really feel your emotions, and I share your joy with you. It is for me, it's an amazing conversation. It's virgin material for me, and I would enjoy talking further with you. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, good. Yay. Okay, thank you very much. All right, Theresa.
Yeah, we're doing tomorrow night, Ace Folk Life. Have we got other people scheduled, or would you like to invite him for one of the hours? Or he's a historian as well, not just UFOs, but other things.
Well, so Jan, is an hour enough time tomorrow for us to get into the next part of your story you'd like to document?
Sure, I think so.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, really good. All right, that's perfect.
Okay.
And, all right, thank you very much. That's absolutely fabulous.
Well, do you have people coming? Do you have people coming tomorrow at a certain time? Would he be the first hour or the second hour? And are you starting 8 California time? What time are you starting?
I can start at whatever. can we take this conversation off air, Theresa? And
well, I've got it already up for tomorrow.
What time?
Jan, it was 8 Eastern, I believe.
Right.
So
right.
8 Eastern. But if you want to come the first hour, maybe, or it's 8 to 10 is her time because she starts at 6 California.
Okay. So what do you have my number and everything? Can you give her my number?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give it to her.
Okay. Thank you.
It'll be on this station in this archive for the ACO. We're trying to save money on all these SSL certificates on all our domains, so we're trying to combine databases. But right now we're just going to use this archive for oral archives for Ace Folk Life tomorrow night, 8 to 10. That's 7 my time, 6 Suzanne's. But that'll be 8 o'clock your time tomorrow, and she's got 2 or 3 people will introduce, and they'll tell their stories, and we'll ask you for a story.
We're going to ask him first. Okay. We're going to do you for the first hour by himself, and then I'll bring on some other people. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you with our various clubs. World Views tomorrow night with Ace Folk Life. Thank you. This was Jan Aldrich and Suzanne signing off.